Good morning. Welcome back to another week of science here. January 25th. We're on page 263. I'm gonna warn you, page 263 is gonna help you with part of your assignment, but most of this assignment is gonna come straight from this teaching video. And so, spoiler alert, your assignment looks like this, and in fact is this. We did talk briefly about the 3 layers of the earth last week. We're going to talk about a little bit more detail today, but your job is to both label and color this area. So label what this part is, what this part is, and what this part is, and then describe each layer below. Now again, page 263 will help you, but even wrote here, please use the teaching video to answer these below. So I strongly suggest you get your paper packet out. You can put this video on pause, go get the paper packet, this assignment, put it right here, and don't hesitate to pause the video because there'll be a couple slides where you can write down some information, and that's really going to help you out. But if you remember, there's 3 parts of the earth that God made. Now, I know you see 4 parts, but as you can see here, we have an inner and outer core, and that's often considered one. Now, yes, the inner core and outer core are different because the inner core is solid, okay? That's solid, and the outer core is more liquid. Now, when I say liquid, I don't want you to think water because that's not what's down there, but it's literally liquid or melted rock. If you remember how we talked about last week with the different rocks and how hot and how much pressure that heat does on rocks, that it can actually change the chemical makeup of rocks. That's what's going on down there. And that is what's so incredibly hot. It can melt rocks. I know I brought this up last week, but remember, most of our fire pits or even our wood stove actually have some rocks in there on top because that produces and absorbs a lot of heat and gives off a lot of heat, which is what we want with our wood stoves. But it's nowhere close to melting rock. That is how massively hot it is in the core, which is in the literal middle of our earth. Again, so when people make a joke and say, I'll just bury and bury a hole down the middle of the earth and wind up in China. Well, it is true that China is basically the direct opposite end of the world from us, but you can't dig a hole. First of all, you got a lot of rock to dig through, and secondly, you can't survive those temperatures there. There is a lot of our core and mantle, believe it or not, that scientists still don't know about and are still discovering. Now, I know that, honestly, with your guys' age, it's going to be amazing in your lifetime what we learned about space and what we learned about other planets. I mean, we've already learned so much, but there's so much more still to learn. I mean, let's face it, we haven't had a single person on another planet yet. I bet you in your lifetime soon that's going to be coming, but we've sent machines there or satellites there or different probes there, but no people. Yes, we've walked on the moon, but the moon's not a planet. That's just a moon, a satellite that goes around the earth. But at any rate, my point is, even though there's so much learned about space, still right here at home with the earth, there's so much to learn about our own planet, including the outer core, the inner core, and the mantle, because it's just so hot and so much heat and pressure going on that we don't even have the machines that we can send down there because they just get obliterated. Now, I do have a couple different things here I want to talk about. A lot of times to help remember how the earth, and we have compared and contrasted here, how the earth is made up by God is a lot like an apple. Now, obviously, you can tell the very much different, contrasted, how an apple is contrasted from the earth. But take it just kind of the 3 parts. You have the core, right? The middle part with the seeds in there. Usually the part that people throw out and don't eat because it's harder, right? And that's to protect the seeds. And then we have kind of the flesh. That's the whitish part that we eat. You can think of that as like the mantle. That's the part that makes up most of the apple, and the mantle is the part that makes up most of the earth. And believe it or not, really the only reason it's there for an apple is to protect the seeds. And then you have the skin, right? Here we have the crust on the outer edge, And we might be used to the skin with an apple because we say, do you want a green apple or a red apple? Well, what you're really talking about is the skin, right? Or I suppose a yellow apple, things like that. And you know that's the part you bite into, but if you really look at it, that's a really, really, really thin line in comparison to the rest of the apple. Now, when we talk about the earth, too, the crust is the part we're used to, because that's the part we live on. That's the part we build buildings on, and we dig into and we walk on every day. But in comparison to the rest of the earth, it's really actually quite thin. Now, again, in comparison to the rest of the earth, now you got to dig a long, long way down to the crust to get to the mantle. But certain mines and different things actually do get down to the mantle. But it's just a way to help people remember the different parts of the earth as compared to an apple. Now here's a better kind of part that might show a little bit more of the earth kind of cut in half. Now again, the inner core is a solid mass there. The outer core, which is still the core, the middle part, that's all the liquid part. And then we have the mantle, and then we have the crust here. And again, the crust is what we're used to, but really quite thin in comparison to the rest of the earth. Here's another example too. Again, inner core, outer core, right? Solid, liquid rock, and we have the mantle, which is mostly solid, but it's also got a lot of liquid parts, the melted rock. That's what we call the magma, right? And when that gets so much pressure, it actually comes out in our earth in volcanoes, and then we call it lava. It's still melted rock, but it's called lava when we can actually see it when it's outside of the earth. So here's a good part where you may very well want to pause this video and write down. No, I don't expect you to write down everything you see here. You only have one line. I purposely did that, but write one thing that you've learned about the core. Okay? Remember, this core is the inner part here. This is the inner part. We have not had any kind of machine or any kind of person go down there because none of it has been able to handle the extreme temperatures. Nothing has been there. Again, 3,700 degrees Celsius. Nothing can withstand that we've invented right now. But at any rate, that's all what's going on with the core. It really is the center part of our earth. The inner core is solid. The outer core is the melted part, liquid. But again, they're talking liquid rock and metals that are burned there. Now the mantle, this is kind of the thickest part. Remember an apple? This is kind of the fleshy part that we eat, the white part there. Okay? This is still far below the crust. Yes, people have been in the mantle in different mines and things like that. But it's by far the biggest part of the earth. And this is where we have a lot of that hard rock as well as some magma, some of that melted rock there. And this is where we talked about last week, where we have a lot of that metamorphic rock, a lot of that rock that's formed because of the intense heat and the intense pressure. And then, of course, we come to the crust. Now, again, this is the part that we're used to. This is the part that you and I walk on all day, every day. This is the part that we have our house built on, and the school and the church, and your neighbor's house, and bashes and things like that. It's all part of the crust. Now, we call it as a solid. And you might say, wait a second here, Mr. Pongo, what about all the water? Most of the world is ocean. You say, you're right. But I think you guys also understand that underneath the ocean water, there is ground, right? There is the crust. So yes, most of the earth is water, but we still call it a solid crust with water on top of it. But if you go down far enough, in some parts of the ocean, you got to go really, really deep. But there still is solid ground that makes up the crust, the outer layer there. And again, we're most used to the crust that we walk on all the time. So yes, it is thick. However, compared to the rest of the earth, it's actually by far the thinnest layer, kind of like the skin of an apple. Now here again, if you didn't find anything you want to write down on your assignment with the one-line thing, this one might help you. But Here's a couple more different things. Talks about the thickness and the state. That just means, is it solid? Is it liquid? Things like that. And this just tells you about how thick it is. Okay, so average of 30 to 40 kilometers. Again, you can't dig that with a shovel. You need machinery, and you need heavy-duty machinery, and you need lots of time. Even some mines don't get all the way through the crust and in the mantle. Yes, some most definitely do. Some most definitely do. But it takes a lot of time and heavy machinery. This might help you out a little bit too, just to give you a little bit more view. I hope you understand. Here's kind of the earth, and then here's a little like pie piece taken out so you can see the solid inner core with the liquid outer core, then the mantle with a lot of rock and some melted rock, magma and things like that, and then we have the crust like what we're used to. And again, the crust is really what we talk about, all the land, even the land underneath the ocean. That's what we consider the crust. Excuse me. A little bit more. This does not get down to the core. This just shows you a lot of where the mantle is and the crust here. And of course, a lot of the crust, what we're used to. But just showing that part of the mantle, meaning the magma, can actually come up out of the crust. And that's lava. And that's where some of those igneous rocks are formed when that comes. So I know it's a lot of new interesting stuff. I hope you found it interesting, but just want to talk about how God made the earth. We're going to talk about that more tomorrow, but here is your assignment again. The book on page 263 will help you somewhat, but for the most part, I strongly suggest you go back to this video and pause it at different slides where you see crust, mantle, and core, and write down something that you've learned or found interesting. Here's the assignment for today, guys. I want to wish you Lord's blessings as you praise your Savior.